And then our technical team will be sitting down now, reading all contributions, because many people are writing and are posting in our social media groups. We'll be collecting all those views so that eventually put them together, we produce something concrete. By December, we must be done in the process. In January, we will also call a broad consultation meeting.
The East African community has taken major steps to ease migration, but not all member states are keeping pace. This is according to a new study authored by Alan Hirsch from the New South Institute, which highlights that while countries like Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda have embraced the Common Market Protocol, others are failing behind. The report, titled Opening Borders for Migration in the East African Community, Progressive Yet Uneven Reform, praises the region's progress since 2010, but warns that the enforcement
for all Africans. So they've moved ahead. The East African community was first established in the 1960s by the then newly independent African countries. That fell apart because of instability in the region. But when it was reconstituted about 25 years ago, it was much stronger. And the level of commitment in their regional community is something that I think most Africans can aspire to, even though it has been an uneven process.
And US President Donald Trump says he's giving Russia's Vladimir Putin 12 days or less to make progress on severe tariffs on Russia's trading partners if a deal was not reached in 50 days. The BBC's Sasha Schulter has the details.
A visibly exasperated President Trump said his own 50-day deadline made little sense when no progress was being made. He said there'd be a formal announcement in the next 2 days, but the countdown had already begun. He indicated he was not interested in more talks with President Putin. Each time a deal was visible, he said, the Russian leader would start lobbing missiles into Ukrainian cities. If Mr. Trump makes good on his word, for the first time, buyers of Russian oil will be slapped with what's known as secondary tariffs.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Matapela Mahape.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update, only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
In our headlines this hour, World University Games sprint double champion Bayanda Walaza says the Rhine-Ru event has proved to be adequate preparation for the Tokyo World Championship. And Japan's Naomi Osaka's four-time Grand Slam singles champion will work with Polish coach Tomasz Windowski. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Matapelo Mohapi with our news update and Fikile Lingwati with our sports headlines. And we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. It is 12:08 Central African Time. And today on hashtag Africa Update Ask, we focus on Tunisia and the Tunisians protesting, calling for the release of political prisoners and detainees. Now, could these protests lead to something bigger? And what do you think citizens and government should do to ensure peace and stability? Let us know your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763, that's 406 9126. Hashtag Africa Update Us.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
Because it takes you way back in the 80s. My goodness. Hey, baby. You hear Ibun Chaga Chaga there. I wanna talk to the DJ. And then the DJ goes like, hey baby, I've got you on the other side. There were no WhatsApps then, right? There were no sliding to the DMs at the time. Oh man.
Your weekend mornings are activated with the Shy Guy on the Morning Switch.
Well, SABC Sports brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2022. Tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. Now stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Our civil society groups in the Democratic Republic of Congo have accused Congolese soldiers and members of militia of raping 13 women in the eastern territory of Beni since the beginning of July. Now, cases of sexual violence have increased significantly in the eastern part of the country after the resurgence of the M23 rebellion in late 2021. Chris Ochamringa has more from Kinshasa.
The latest case was reported on 24th July when a 15-year-old girl was raped by a man wearing the uniform of the Congolese army. The use of rape as a weapon of war is widespread in conflict zones in eastern DRC, despite efforts by the Congolese army to stop it. The conflict between government forces and the M23 rebels has seen an alarming increase in cases of sexual violence. Rights groups have accused both sides of carrying out sexual attacks of 2025 alone. Many of the victims face stigma and rejection by their family and spouses. Their situation has been made worse because access to treatment has become difficult due to global cuts in humanitarian funding by the US government. Local communities in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo say they are now living in fear following the rise in sexual violence against women and girls. Chris Ochamringa, SABC News, Kinshasa.
It is 12 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa 1. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa 1. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hawa wa Afrika Kusini wenye asili ya kizungu ambao wamepewa ukimbizi huko nchini Marekani. Je, nini chanzo cha wao kuomba ukimbizi nchini Marekani?
Wenyewe wajaomba ukimbizi. Kuna shirika fulani inaitwa AfriForum, shirika mbili za wazungu ambao wanatetea haki ya wazungu hapa, AfriForum na Solidarity. Hao walienda Marekani kufanya kampeni kusema kwamba wazungu wananyanyaswa hapa Afrika Kusini, na walivyofanya hiyo kampeni serikali iweze kuwafuatilia kujua nini ambacho mnasema kwamba mnanyanyaswa.
Kuna namna ya wao kwamba wamepoteza uraia wa Afrika Kusini, na je, endapo Trump akamaliza muda wake madarakani, uhalali wao wa kuishi nchini Marekani ukoje?
Itakuwa vigumu, kifupi itakuwa vigumu wenyewe kupoteza uraia wao.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 15 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. There are reports coming out of Cameroon that opposition leader Maurice Kamto has been placed under house arrest. It comes after the country's electoral commission barred Kamto from running in the upcoming presidential election in October later this year. The decision has sparked concerns of unrest and is seen as a boost to 92-year-old incumbent President Paul Biya, who has been in power for decades. We are now joined on the line by Nestor Njomachui, the MRC CRM representative in South Africa. Nestor, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to you all. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, Nestor, we've received reports that Maurice Kamto is currently under house arrest and banned from giving interviews in Cameroon. What updates are you getting, especially after he's basically been banned from running for these elections?
Yes, Tracy, officially the president is not under house arrest. The information are not clear yet. I can categorically say that is not under house arrest. However, since Saturday the 26th, the day that the Electoral Commission has chosen the presidential candidate for the oncoming election in October, the government has militarized the two biggest cities in Cameroon, Yaoundé and Douala. But the president is not under house arrest.
Now, you're talking of militarization of these big cities in Cameroon. Unpack it for us. What is the reaction of the citizens? And obviously with police presence and security forces presence in major cities, it must be a little uncomfortable for the people.
Exactly. It is very uncomfortable, but the president has sent a message out to the population to remain calm. We all know that the decision by the Electoral Commission can be appealed to the Constitutional Council. And all the candidate has 2 days to appeal the decision. So yesterday, the party appealed the decision on the Constitutional Council, and the Constitutional Council has 10 days to reply to our appeal. So the president has sent a clear message to all his militant and sympathizers to remain calm and wait until the decision from the Constitutional Council.
What role do you think the international community can play in promoting free and fair elections in Cameroon, particularly in light of the Electoral Commission's decision to bar Kamto?
Yeah, the international community have a major role to make sure that the election in Cameroon can be free and fair. Excluding the main challenger from the president for the presidential election can be seen as a political witch hunt against Maurice Kamto. So we all know that from the 2018 presidential election, the official result has declared President Maurice Kamto as the second after Biya. And since 2018, all the observers know that President Maurice Kamto is the main challenger to President Biya. So the international community should make sure that the Cameroon cannot fall back into the violence that we saw in 2018 after the presidential election. We also know that until now we have militant and sympathizers of the Cameroon Renaissance movement still in prison. They have been condemned for a lengthy time in jail, ranging from 3 to 7 years. Up to now, we still have militant in jail. So we appeal to the international community to put pressure of the government to make sure that the upcoming elections are free and fair, and that we need change in Cameroon, but that change should go through peaceful means and through free and fair election.
Now, let's talk about President Paul Biya looking for another term in office at the age of 92. How do you think President Biya's advanced age and lengthy tenure in the office impacts his ability to effectively lead the country? And the big question now is he leading the country?
Exactly, Tracy. You know, President Paul Biya has been in power for 43 years. He has been president since 1982. And before that, he was a prime minister for 7 years, from 1975 to 1982. And before that, he was Secretary General of the Presidency for more than 8 years. In total, President Paul Biya has been in the highest sphere of government since 1962, at the age of 23 years. So, now we all know that since the election, the last presidential election in 2018, President Paul Biya has not hosted any cabinet meeting since 2018. And after taking the oath of power in 2019, he signed a decree delegating all his power to the Secretary General of the Presidency. As we are sitting here now, the Cameroon is governed by proxy. And that proxy is the Secretary General of the Presidency. We all know, or we all see President Paul Biya was invited by President Biden, where President Biya did not even know where it is. He was asking questions to his head, where it is, where I am, who is in the meeting room. We all know that at 93 years old, even scientifically, at 93 years old, you cannot have all your faculties to govern. And governing the country is not child play. You have to have all your faculty to govern the country. So President Paul Biya, who have decided, we all know that it's not him who have decided to be in power. It is people, those proxies into whom he gives power to govern, that have declared him to be a president for the 8th time. And we know all that President Paul Biya, during an interview with President Macron, says that when the time comes, I will tell you if I will go back to the village or I will remain in power. He has never spoken. We all see a tweet from the presidency who says that I will be a president. We all know President Paul Biya is not capable at his age to govern Cameroon.
Well, Nesta, I guess it's a wait-and-see game with regards to Maurice Kamto and whether his appeal will be accepted and go through, and whether he will run for elections, and what the decision is going forward. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for us. Thank you very much. And we hope that the Constitutional Council will read the law. We all know that all the member has been member of the ruling party, but we all know that by this time they will read the law. We cannot accept that the main challenger to President Paul Biya cannot be in this particular election.
Oh, that's Nestor Jomachui, the MRC CRM representative in South Africa, joining us on the line. It is 23 after 12 Central African time, and you can join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406-9126 hashtag Africa Updates, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. And today on hashtag Africa Update Ask, we focus on Tunisians who are protesting, calling for the release of political prisoners and detainees. Now, our question to you is, could these protests lead to something bigger? And what do you think citizens and government should do to ensure peace and stability in their country? Share your views and your thoughts on all our social media platforms. Hashtag Africa Update Us.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Now, as you heard, that question with regards to Tunisia and the citizens hitting the streets. The Tunisians in the capital, Tunis, took to the streets last week protesting against President Kais Saied, marking 4 years since he moved to consolidate his one-man rule. Since 2021, Saied has dissolved key judicial bodies, dismissed judges, and overseen the jailing of numerous opponents. He also suspended parliament, dismissed his prime minister, and invoked a state of emergency to begin ruling by decree. And for more on what is happening in Tunisia, we are now joined on the line by Dr. Laïd Zakhlami, I beg your pardon, Information Communication Faculty Member at the University of Algiers. Dr. Zakhlami, thank you for joining us, and good afternoon to you.
Thank you.
Now, in terms
Thank you
of...
for having me on your program.
It's always a pleasure. Now, tell us about the protest action that was seen, with Tunisians hitting the streets and calling for the release of political prisoners and detainees. We've seen this before. And previously, the reaction from government was sending police and security forces into the streets to curb these protests. What has happened, and what's the reaction from government this time around?
Well, I think let's make it clear. Since Kais Saied take the power about 4 years ago, it has not been an easy game for him. Well, he was having his own, I would say, special way of approaching, of governing, which has I would say, triggered a lot of contest from the political scene and from the street. And he has taken so many harsh decisions, which are perceived as very, very negative, as well as authoritarian approach. And therefore, he didn't, I have to admit, he didn't get any sympathy from the street, and he didn't even have the support from a wide range of the society. And as you mentioned, just about 2 days ago, last weekend on Friday, there was a huge protest against his policy. Well, this is ahead of the election, which will be held in very few weeks. And so it's like it's a campaign. Anticipated campaign for the next election. Of course, opposition are not at all happy with his way of governing, and he imposed a strict approach to calm down or to silence all voices that are against his policy.
We go back in history and we look at the fact that Tunisia is known, or being known as the birthplace of the Arab Spring pro-democracy uprising. What changed? President Saied has decided to rule by decree, and as you've touched on the fact that Tunisians are not happy about this, but he was still voted into power, into the presidency. What now?
Well, I think, frankly speaking, the regime of Ben Ali, which was overthrown, as you said, during the Arab Spring 2011, it was replaced by another one, and the one who took over was even contested, and that's why there were an election, and in that election, Kais Saied was elected democratically. As a matter of fact, he has no experience in politics. He is a professor of law at university, and he came into to politics, I would say, by accident. But once he took the power, he made clear that he has a strong grasp on the power, and he took so many harsh decisions that irritated so many people, and particularly the opposition, who he treated them as, let's say, traitor and terrorist. So his conception of governing is completely different, because he has no political background. And here are the result. The result is that military. He has collided with the military authorities, and now he is imposing his way of governing, which is not accepted by the most of the population. But overall, let's hope that in the next election the people will have the right to decide it, and we will see whether it's correct or not what he has been doing so far.
I guess everyone is looking forward to the elections that are coming up, and with regards to opposition political party leaders, what are they saying on the ground, and are they out in their numbers to support the protest action?
Well, I'm sure there are some political leaders who are taken to prison, as well as some political activists who are arrested. I don't think he will not take for. I mean, from my own view, I won't take for granted that he will win again. But it's very risky task. But let's give a chance to ensure or to make sure to secure transparency in that election, and we will see what he is, as I said, in the wrong or the right track. But overall, his way of leadership, of governing, was ever contested since the very first day. Yeah. As I said to you, maybe because he is lacking somehow political experience and political skills. But overall, I would say he was criticized for dealing with human rights activists and with press freedom and so forth. But overall, we like it or not, Tunisia is very fragile on social and economic ground, and that's why he has been taking so many decisions, let's say, to put an end to all corruption and mismanagement that have characterized the country for a couple of years.
Well, Dr. Zahlami, thank you for joining us on Africa Update. We'll leave it there for today. That's Dr. Laid Zahlami, Information Communication Faculty Member at the University of Algiers, joining us on the line. It is time for our news headlines with Matapelo Mohapi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. News making headlines this hour. Cameroon's opposition leader, Maurice Kamto, is reportedly under house arrest. This comes after the country's electoral commission barred Kamto from running in the upcoming presidential election in October later this year. The decision has sparked concerns of unrest and is seen as a boost to 92-year-old incumbent President Paul Biya, who has been in power for decades. Despite paying ransoms for their release, Nigerian kidnappers have killed at least 35 people abducted from a community in northern Zamfara state. The bandits sought a ransom of $655 for each detainee. Chairman of the local government says the majority of those killed were young people who were savaged like rams. And despite increasing truck traffic, the majority of supplies is still not reaching those in need in Gaza. It's reported 95% of the food is being robbed from cars and gangs operating in the increasingly uncontrolled Palestinian region. Humanitarian groups have warned that this week is critical for saving thousands of lives from famine. More details on these and other stories at top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
In our sports update this hour, we begin with the athletics. FISU, World University Games sprint double champion and South African Bayanda Walaza says the Rhine-Ru event has proved to be adequate preparation for the Tokyo World Championships in September. There were initial doubts over whether Walaza, a first-year TUT student, would be part of the Team South Africa in Germany, considering his busy calendar. But the 19-year-old did commit and claimed both the main and 100-meter and 200-meter titles, establishing himself as a crowd favorite. The Olympian sent a strong message ahead of Japan. With this, his time of 10.16 in the 100 meter and then later powering through the 200 meter by clocking 20.63. The commentators and international media compared Walaza to Agani Simbine and Wade van Niekerk. And on to football news. South African Football Association Chief Medical Officer Dr. Thulani Ngwenya has confirmed to SABC Sport that the association will carry the costs of getting Gabriela Salgado back on her feet, literally following her horrific injury in the WAFCON semi-final defeat to Nigeria. Salgado stayed down on the floor in deep anguish while her teammates were inconsolable last Tuesday after a tackle from behind broke her leg in the 83rd minute. Ngwenya says while they will involve her club side, JVW, Safa will take the driving seat throughout the whole recovery and rehabilitation. Ngwenya also confirmed the player arrived back in the country after flying back with team manager Lauren Duncan on Monday morning and is now back with her family. He says the long flight from Morocco did take a toll on her and she was in some pain upon arrival. And in tennis news, Japan's Naomi Osaka, a four-time Grand Slam singles champion, will work with Polish coach Tomasz Witowrowski on a trial basis after splitting with Patrick Morateglu after less than a year together. Osaka announced the parting with Frenchman Morateglu, the former coach of superstar Serena Williams, on social media on Monday before defeating Canadian qualifier Ariana Arsenault 6-4, 6-2 in 76 minutes in a first-round match at the WTA Canadian Open in Montreal. Osaka, ranked 49th, began working in Canada with Witowrowski, helping her reach the Wimbledon final and world number 2 ranking in July 2012. Witowrowski also coached Poland's Iga Swiatek from late 2021 until last October, a run where she won 4 of her 6 career Grand Slam singles titles before adding the most recent at Wimbledon earlier this month. Osaka will next face 13th seed Ludmila Samsonova in the second round. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Thulisile Buddha, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Thulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
A very good afternoon. Workers' Union Giwusa is demanding the immediate withdrawal of Metro Rail of fare increases expected from the 1st of August. The Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, or PRASA, announced the single tickets will increase by 2 South African Rand 50 cents, while return tickets will increase between 5 Rand 50 cents and 6 Rands, depending on the distance travelled. Giwusa President Mametle Sibei says increases are expensive, especially for the working class.
There's increases ranging from savage 33 to 43% on daily tickets. That is increases of 2 Rand 50 from 7 Rand 50 to 10 Rand for singles, from 14 Rand to 20 Rand for returns, to 16 and 25 rand increases on weekly tickets and over 100 per month for monthly tickets. This is a criminal extortion of the working class, another blow from the GNU on the living standards and betrayals of the commitments and promises of sustainable public transport as an alternative to deadly pollution, accident and chaos on the roads.
The Electricity and Energy Department says South Africa's G20 presidency will benefit the country as it plans to expand its nuclear power generation capacity. South Africa's nuclear energy program has been in operation since 1984. The department will convene the third G20 Energy Transitions Working Group meeting in Sun City in the Northwest Province this week. The department is hopeful that South Africa's G20 presidency will open investment opportunities in the country's transition to renewable energy. The Deputy Director General is Sizamele Mbambo.
The G20 comprises some of the most advanced countries that have got wealth, that they could find opportunities to invest in South Africa as we are dealing with issues of our economy, and we're looking into investment from different countries. So the G20 provides that platform, and also looking into the energy space, it is a perfect opportunity that the South Africa would utilize to promote our energy mix.
Meanwhile, a nuclear energy expert, Professor Bismarck Chobeka, says South Africa must form alliances with countries that have nuclear expertise such as Russia, China and South Korea.
Some of the arrangements may be the choice of a strategic part, which is what Egypt did with the Russian Federation, to say that the producer of the technology owner will deploy the nuclear power plants in your country, but government must produce certain guarantees, such as the power purchase agreement. We'll build nuclear power plants for you, but you must commit to buying electricity from these nuclear power plants at a particular price for a particular period. That's part of your financing arrangements.
The Democratic Alliance Party says the sale or lease of the Pretoria City Hall to the Iranian embassy could damage South Africa's international standing. This comes after reports that the Iranian embassy could be involved in plans to renovate and lease the dilapidated building. The DA's Tshwane caucus leader, Silius Brink, says the ANC's proximity to Iran is one of the factors that has complicated the country's relationship with the US. He says Iran is believed to have funded some of the ANC's election campaigns in the past. Brink has warned that such a deal could exacerbate tensions with the US and other trading partners.
The country is in a very tense relationship with the United States at present because of geopolitical changes, because of the Trump administration. And what the country should be doing is to negotiate prior to Friday, which is the deadline when those American tariffs come into place, a favorable position so that we can continue to export products made or grown in this country to U.S. markets. And if you compare our trading relationship with Iran to that of the United States, there's simply no interest to speak of there.
The euro has struggled to recoup its steep losses today, as investors sobered up the fact that terms of the trade deal between the US and the European Union favoured the former and hardly lifted the economic outlook of the bloc. Yesterday, France called the framework a trade agreement a dark day for Europe, saying the bloc had caved in to US President Donald Trump with an unbalanced deal that slapped a headline, a 15% tariff on EU goods. The slide in the euro in turn boosted the dollar, which jumped 1% against a basket of currencies overnight. Your financial indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 527. In Botswana, it's at 13 pula 28. Kenya, 128 shilling 38. And Zambia, 23 kwacha 27. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5 ruble 58. In Russia, it's at 80 rubles 13. India, 86 rupees 63, China 71.18, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 83 cents. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,312 and platinum $1,401 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $69.96 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabisolo Hoku.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa at Play with NATO and ETO chairman.
The Confederation of African Athletics, CAA President Mr. Hamad Kalkaba Malboum, talk to us about the state of athletics in Africa as it stands and what picture are you looking at 5 years later?
Yeah, athletics in Africa is strong. We are able to organize our major events in time. Like this year, we will have the under-20 and under-18 African Championship in Nigeria. Next year, we will have the senior in Ghana. In 2027, we will go back to Algeria to organize the under-18 and under-20. And then 2028, we will have the senior championship in Gaborone in Botswana. Well, by this program, we can increase our performance. And at the same time, we are considering the fact that within the British Federation, they are identifying young talent every year within their national program, within the scholarship championship. And so the athletics in Africa is in good standard.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:46 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World, SOFI 2025 report by 5 specialized agencies of the United Nations has revealed that hunger continues to rise in most sub-regions of Africa and Western Asia. Now, the report estimates that 8.2% of the global population experienced hunger in 2024, down from 8.5% in 2023 and 8.7% in 2022. And to discuss this further, we are joined on the line by David Laborde, Director of Agri-Food Economics Division. David, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, it's a pleasure.
Now, David, tell us about this report and how long it took to put it together and what it means. What needs to be taken away from this report?
So it's a publication that we release every year at the same time, so during the month of July. And it's a report that is done by different UN organizations. And the goal is really to see how we make progress together at the global level on food security and nutrition. So we try to track the number of people that are in chronic hunger, so the people that are, every day face a lack of food, a lack of calorie, the people that feel food insecure, the cost of accessing healthy diets, and the nutrition indicator for kids and the population. And so it takes many people around the world to get all this information. And so yes, we have just released the report, and we are going to start the new one in a couple of weeks. And in addition of these numbers, every year you will see a specific topic, and this year it's food inflation. That's a problem that many countries have faced during the last few years.
Now, before we get to the food inflation problems or challenges, let's talk about just the decline that is obviously welcome, but with the latest estimates remaining above pre-pandemic levels, why do you think this is the case? And how do we remedy this crisis before it becomes a pandemic?
So today we are talking about 673 million people that are in chronic hunger. As you say, that's a bit more than 8% of the global population. And so it means we are still far from the goal that the world had to eradicate hunger by 2030. Now, in the last couple of years, we have seen a decline of hunger in Latin America, in East Asia, for instance, when unfortunately we're still rising in Africa and in Western Asia. Now, the sad reality also is that we are still at a higher level today than in 2015 by more than 100 million people. And that's been driven by the COVID-19 crisis, by a number of conflicts, by a number of climate shock. And today we start to see a recovery. As I've said, in some region it has taken place, in other it has not taken place. And actually the link with food inflation is there, meaning that the whole economic recovery has not been translated in terms of large food security gains because food has been expensive.
It's notable improvements are seen in Southern Asia and Latin America, but this contrasts sharply with the steady rise in hunger across Africa and Western Asia, with a proportion of the population facing hunger in Africa surpassing 20% in 2024. What is the reasoning behind this? And, we know that conflict also does play a major role.
So what we have seen around the world is, yes, if you have a country in conflict, hunger rise. When you have severe climate shock, hunger rise. When you are also in a society where inequality is very high, hunger will tend to rise. And in the regions that have seen progress, what has happened is, first you have more peaceful conditions, but also government have been very active in terms of deploying social protection scheme, making sure that the most vulnerable people have access to food. And it has helped really to make an inclusive recovery. Now, unfortunately, for instance, in Africa, we have a combination of different drivers. One is still population growing and growing fast. At the same time, an agricultural productivity lagging behind or not moving in some countries. And then you have seen climate shock with flood and drought that also contribute to low agricultural productivity. You have conflict in Sudan, in South Sudan, and a level of poverty that is still pretty high. And that's why, as you say, 20% of the continent is in chronic hunger. And in a couple of years, actually half of the people in the world that are hungry will be in Africa.
Mm. Now, David, what recommendations have been made?
So what we need really, is an holistic approach. We need a combination of effect, because on one hand, we still need to invest in agriculture. We need to be able to produce more, especially in Africa, because there is still a high potential. And we have many farmers and smallholders that are not using all their potential because they don't have access to finance, they don't have access to technology. And so it will bring more food, and in many cases, better food on the markets, but also it will generate income for them. And so it will help reducing poverty. So a strong investment in agriculture and beyond agriculture, the whole value chain is important. But then not everyone is a farmer. Not everyone will benefit from this directly. So we need also social protection program. We need a way to make sure that the most vulnerable people have access to income and economic access to food. And sometimes it starts also by ambitious school feeding program, making sure that every kid can access to a healthy lunch that is good for him or her, and that also can help the family to deal with the budget constraints. Now, we also face more shocks, so we need to make the system more resilient, and it requires better information, better finance like insurance product, better technology, for example, to get drought-resistant maize. And you see a combination of things that, on one hand, make your system more efficient, more productive, but also make it more inclusive and making sure that when we have economic growth, more people benefit from it, but at the same time, more resilient, because we live in a world where there are more and more shocks. And that's not exactly the same time of tools or investment we need.
Well, David, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. That was David Laborde, Director of Agri-Food Economics Division, joining us on the line. It is 12:53 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Now, while the decline is, I beg your pardon, we're looking at another story where we're focusing on African legislators having been called upon to seize the historic opportunity presented by the upcoming G20 Speakers Summit to the continent. Now, South Africa's parliament will host the 11th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit, known as the P20, bringing together leaders from G20 national parliaments in Kleinmond, outside the city of Cape Town in the Western Cape in South Africa later this year. Ndlandla Mahlangu has more.
The Parliament of South Africa will host the 11th G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit P20 from the 29th of September to the 3rd of October. This will be a gathering of speakers and presiding officers from G20 member countries. During a joint consultative meeting between the Pan-African Parliament and the Parliament of South Africa, held in preparation for the P20 Symposium for African Speakers of Parliament, 28 presiding officers from both institutions, along with African women and youth parliamentarians, expressed a shared belief that it's Africa's moment and African women and youth must capitalize on it. President of the Pan-African Parliament, Chief Fortune Charumbira, urged parliamentarians to use the platform provided by South Africa's hosting of the P20 summit to ensure that youth and women's issues are prominently featured.
There is something called the P20 which will come later, Parliament 20, the speakers of Parliament. But where are the women? Are the women excluded? Again, through the Parliament of South Africa, we are here to make sure that the women voice is not forgotten. Women also make an input.
Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Refilwe Mtsweni Tsipani, underscored the historic significance of South Africa's hosting of the P20, describing it as a unique opportunity for African parliaments to place gender equality and Africa's priorities at the center of global discourse. She urged parliaments to pursue a women-centered agenda, dismantle exclusionary laws, and advance transformative parliamentary diplomacy.
It presents an opportunity for us to reassert a paradigm shift that advances the women empowerment across Africa. During the P20, the strategic opportunities that allows parliaments to share best practices in legislation, oversight, and public engagement shall be deliberated on. This includes the gender equality legislation, the mechanisms that oversee government programs, and parliamentary initiatives ensuring meaningful participation of women and youth in policy development.
The Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of South Africa, Dr. Anil Lotriet, described South Africa's G20 chairship and hosting of the P20 summit as not merely a diplomatic milestone, but a historic opportunity to place gender equality and women's empowerment firmly on the global agenda.
For us as African women, leaders, this is not just symbolic. It is an open door to influence, to speak boldly, and to ensure that our voices are no longer on the periphery of global discourse, but at the very center. The P20 provides us with key strategic opportunities to learn from one another and global peers on how we craft legislation, monitor gender equality outcomes, and empower women's participation in governance.
The P20 summit is held in the country holding the G20 presidency and is chaired by the presiding officer of the host parliament. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Ndlandla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
And that's how we wrap Africa Update today. Thank you so much for joining us, and continue with us on our social media platforms. And do continue on our question today, where we're focusing on Tunisia and the citizens of Tunisia hitting the streets in protest to the arrests of or the imprisonment of political opposition leaders as well as detainees, and the calling for their release. And our question to you you is, could these protests lead to something bigger? And what do you think the citizens and government should do to ensure peace and stability in that country? Let us know what your views are and your thoughts on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on X and Instagram, and also send us your voice notes and comments on +2763 as 406 9126. It's hashtag Africa Update Ask, and continue with us on in general about the show and what you've heard and what more you'd like to hear on all our social media platforms. And thank you to our team today, Tracy Bumgard, our technical operator, Wandile Mate, and social media, Sfiso Hlope and Talent Butelezi. It's been a good one. Let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
With your news at 1 o'clock, I'm Matapala Mahabe. Good afternoon. Cameroon's opposition leader